and thank you for the opportunity to make a maiden speech, so to speak. As several members have pointed out, the questions are aplenty, the answers are all over the show, they lack credibility, both in the public domain and from what I'm hearing here as well. So let me also apologize for being late. I think context matters here, Chairperson. And the context is, firstly, I don't know whether the board lives in its own oblivion, but the public is connecting the dots, members of the board. Increasingly, the public is aware of what you, as the board of Eskom, are doing and not doing. They are increasingly aware that you are abusing state property and state resources in the name of yourselves, not in the name of the South African public. That you are part of, either wittingly or unwittingly, in some cases I think there's enough evidence to say wittingly, a conspiracy to capture Eskom for the purposes of the benefit of a few. That's the reality. Let's not play around with sort of technical questions. That's the reality. And worse still, what the South African public is worried about is that we're reaching a stage in managing governance in South Africa where there are a significant number of people in the bureaucracy and elsewhere, and the boards, who actually are taking a view which says, I don't care. I don't care if you know what I do. I don't care if you know that public resources are going elsewhere. I don't care how many reports the public protector or anybody else provides, because I'm protected. The question is by whom and at what cost, and how will history record your role ultimately in this regard? Because this is the critical institution in the South African economy, as we learned in the period 2010 and thereabouts. That when Eskom doesn't work, it has a massive impact on economic growth, it has a massive impact on job creation in South Africa, it has a massive impact on enterprises in South Africa, and today, I don't think we've recovered from that yet, notwithstanding the fancy footwork that we've been doing. And I don't want to talk about the exchanges. So the first point I'm making, Chairperson, is context matters. That this is not just one isolated incident of hiring and firing and retiring and not retiring and maternity leave or otherwise. This is part of a pattern. Last week, the South African Council of Churches produced its preliminary report, which helps us to begin to connect the dots and understand what is actually happening in this context. And what we need to know from the board is, are they still going to do what we used to do as activists before the security police? The minister and the deputy minister will know that, I think. You know, we used to keep a straight face, notwithstanding how many days we were in solitary confinement, and notwithstanding whatever pressure we were put under to answer questions about our affiliation to banned organizations or not. That's what I see. Straight faces. Because we believe that, you know, whatever we pout out in the public domain, nobody's going to be able to challenge in any significant way. And sometimes we do it with extreme arrogance as well. It's remarkable. Whereas we're supposed to be serving a public institution. The second point is worth repeating. In much of the literature of my party and its policy documents, and I'm sure many others share that as well, institutions like the state-owned entities are a crucial part of the developmental state. They are a crucial part of assisting the developmental process. But here we are busy at all sorts of levels, parceling out state assets, state resources, state procurement to a handful of beneficiaries. And again, if we think we're bluffing the public, we've got a thing coming. And that's why, Chairperson, what we do as a parliamentary committee can either give us credibility as Parliament in this process, or we will also be accused of being co-conspirators, inverted commas, in this process.
Yeah.
So how we approach this question is going to be absolutely critical, as far as I'm concerned. If we go back to Mr. Molefe, I mean, at some stage, perhaps when some of the colleagues have been talking about inquiries, if and when those inquiries take place, we need to go back to his role and the CFO's role in Transnet and some of the transactions that are now coming under public purview and examination. Not a subject for debate today, but if you want to connect the dots, connect all the dots and ask ourselves the question, who did what where and in service of what cause at the end of the day. So that's the point I want to leave with you, Chair, and perhaps you can guide us on how we take this matter forward. As many colleagues have pointed out, and I don't want to repeat, from the time of hire to the time, for example, when the board met and said, no, we need to let this fellow go, or this gentleman go, to the point where the board said we need to hire them again, I think the legal advisors from Parliament can only do their job well if they have all the documents available to them. So we want all the board minutes certified by the chairperson of the board as the truthful representation of what happened at the board. If need be, we want to have the tapes of the minutes of the meetings of the board so that the legal advisors can have a look at that to see and verify whether the written minute is fairly representative of what the spoken word was. Let's have transparency. Let's have transparency. We all say we are accountable, we open, we're accessible. Well, let's open the books. Let's open the books so that the South African public can actually say everything is on the table now and we can actually do what is necessary. I think we need to ask you more directly as the board, who instructed you to rehire Mr. Molefe? Who made what phone call to whom? Or which meeting took place where with whom? As a result of which Mr. Molefe was rehired. I don't think we're going to get a truthful answer, by the way. But the question needs to be asked, nonetheless. Chair, if you would allow, I mean, this is a very privileged interaction that we have today, certainly in my experience. It'd be nice, because I've seen some of the board members on television. It'd be nice to hear from each of them what kind of interactions do they have with Oak Bay in their individual capacity, not as a board. Because as Mr. Shivambu was pointing out earlier on in terms of the Powers and Privileges Act, let's hear the truth. Let's hear the truth about what is really going on here. The legal advisors also need to tell us, Chair, as some have been saying, whether the board has indeed been acting recklessly and has been forsaking its fiduciary responsibility, let alone its developmental responsibility to South Africa. To the Minister, was there a legal opinion obtained which said what you can do and what you can't do, what you should agree with, what you shouldn't agree with, either by yourself, by the department, or by the board? Because ultimately this is a labor relations issue. And we can all speculate about who retired when or didn't. And many questions have been asked that I don't want to go into. But secondly, why did you not litigate on the matter? 30 million rands, I know, compared to 30 billion rands is a drop in the ocean, because nowadays you don't steal 1 million, not even 100 million, you steal 1 billion at a time. Yeah. You see? 100 million is not enough in the public domain. So it's 1 billion at a time. So 30 million rands nonetheless is a substantial amount of money. Why haven't we litigated on this matter? Why did we just give in to somebody's demand, as far as this is concerned? I've requested, Chair, if you agree, the various board minutes and so on, and if need be, in an affidavit form. In conclusion, I want to support the idea. Well, the Minister perhaps might also want to tell us, you see, whilst a judicial commission of inquiry in terms of the Constitution is the prerogative of the President, hiring a retired judge to look into a particular matter, anybody can do, any minister can do. So why can't we have a retired judge or a senior counsel who is respected by all parties concerned to come in, look at all the facts, and do the necessary in order to establish what really went on here and what are the facts. Secondly, we still have the option, perhaps we should debate that in the committee on our own, of the full parliamentary inquiry. But this must be backed, thirdly, Chairperson, by a thorough forensic audit. We want a thorough forensic audit about how decisions are made in Eskom. Eskom is far too important an entity for it to become a personal toy of a few individuals. It's a massive entity. We don't want to go into what it's holding as state guarantees and so on at this point in time. I would think respectfully that we might be arriving at a stage where either the board in its entirety should be dismissed or they should voluntarily resign. They have actually let South Africa down, more often than not. And with great respect, I know Dr. Ngubane, for example, for a long time. But I don't think that the board has served South Africa well. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Gordhan.